So what age or weight should your child be before they start sleeping through the night? Well, it depends where you're looking, to be honest, as to how old your child needs to be. Let's take a look at what I found as I just did a really quick search on the internet. 2 pages on the first page of results came up with whattoexpect.com and cafemom.com. And let's just take a look about what they're telling us. Page 1 of our Google results of when a child and the age or weight they should be before they sleep through the night. So let's start with whattoexpect.com. 4 months old. At this age, babies can sleep for a solid 7 or 8 hours, which constitutes sleeping through the night, though it may happen gradually. That's because most 4-month-old babies have reached the magic weight of 11 to 14 pounds, which means they don't metabolically need a nighttime feeding, but they may still demand one. 5 to 6 months old. By now, babies are able to sleep through the night, so if your little one is still waking up more frequently to eat, you can be pretty sure that he's not really hungry. To help him learn to sleep for 6 to 8 hours at a time, most nights, your doctor can advise you on how to slowly cut out those extra nighttime feedings. Physically, your baby will be ready for that transition, though he may protest it, especially if he's used to several overnight snacks and the sweet dose of cuddling that comes with them. Okay. Let's take a look now at Cafe Mom and see what their website says. At around 4 months old, or around 11 to 12 pounds, babies can begin to sleep through the night for 6 to 8 hour stretches. When babies have reached the weight of 11 to 12 pounds, they don't really need a nighttime feeding anymore. Need and want are a different story though. If your baby is still waking up to eat during this time, some experts recommend decreasing the amount of each feeding a bit over the course of a week in the hopes that this will encourage your baby to ditch the nighttime feedings. At around 5 to 6 months, babies usually aren't very hungry when they wake during the night. They may just be looking for that tasty midnight snack they've become accustomed to or the comfort of their mama. When this happens, don't jump up and rush to feed your baby. See if simply caressing or singing to him will help him get back down to sleep first. Okay, so we're seeing here that looks to be 4 months old. We can expect a child to be sleeping for 6 to 8 hour stretches, or as they get to somewhere between 11 and 14 pounds, that we can expect children to be sleeping for somewhere between 6 and 8 hour stretches. And then when they get to 5 to 6 months old, they most certainly should be sleeping through the night, going that 6 to 8 hours without needing to feed at all. Okay, let's just look at this a little bit more realistically. When we're looking at the what to expect, which means that they don't metabolically need a nighttime feeding, but they may still demand one. I don't know actually what that means, and I have messaged whattoexpect.com many times throughout the entirety of this year, asking them where they actually got this piece of information from. Now, What to Expect does, whenever they have an article, they do put the studies that they've looked at to get this. And I've gone through every single study that they have put on this article to see where it says that a child does not metabolically need a nighttime feeding. And there is not one study that they have that actually states that a child is metabolically doesn't need to feed. And I've asked them several times and I've not heard anything back from them at all. So that doesn't, I don't know where that information comes from. But then we're looking at Cafe Mom and it's saying basically similar things, that they don't need a nighttime feed. When they get to 11 or 12 pounds, they don't need a nighttime feeding anymore. Well, there's nothing to say that. There's nothing to say that. There are no studies that say all children do not need a nighttime feed somewhere between 6 and 8 hours during the night. There's nothing out there. There's no studies that actually show this. It just seems to be that because some can do this, that it is presumed that all can. Now, of course, there are plenty of 4-month-olds who are sleeping through the night, and they go down to sleep at the beginning of the night, and they do not need to feed until morning time. And they do not wake up. They do not disturb their parents at all. There are plenty of 4-month-olds who are doing that. But if we actually look at the latest studies, I don't think if we have half of all children, 4-month-olds, who are sleeping through the night and do not need to feed during the night, that we can presume that all do. So even at 50%. But let's actually take a look at the latest studies and see what they are showing us about nighttime feeds and nighttime wake-ups. Here's a study that was published in 2020. And this is basically the latest study. And the reason that this study is so good is because they studied so many children, over 3,000 children. How many times does your baby wake each night and need resettling on average? So more than twice a night. A 3-month-old, 48.8%. So just a little bit less than half of those 3-month-olds were waking more than twice a night. And they needed help, whether that was a feed or whether they needed to be rocked or whether they needed just to have their head rubbed or just to be settled, but they needed help resettling. So around 49% were more than twice a night. Now you can see here at 8 months old, that's actually increased. That's now 56% of 8-month-olds are waking more than twice a night and needing help. 18-month-old, that's dropped down to 22%, and 2 years old, that's now around 15%. How many times does your baby wake each night and need resettling on average? More than 4 times a night. So now it's quite a lot. Now it's only 7% at the age of 3 months. And look again, it's increased at 8 months old to 13%, down to 4.7% at 18 months, and then down to 1.8% at 2 years old. Sleeping a certain way at 3 months old, that is very likely to change the older that they get. Now, this study does not show us actually what's happening when it comes to feeds during the night. We're not able to see what's happening when it comes to feeds, unfortunately. This study doesn't actually look at that, but we can imagine that there are feeds happening during this night. If your child is waking up 4 times a night and more than 4 times a night and needing help resettling, there's going to be feeds happening. If your child is even going to be waking more than twice a night, chances are there's going to be feeds that are going to be happening. Let's look at another part of this study, number of night wakings. So we want to look here at 3 months old, the number of night wakings was 2.2. No, 2. 6-month-olds then were waking 2.5 times a night. 8-month-olds, just reduced a little bit, 2.5 times. At a year-old, that's reduced down to just under 2 wake-ups a night. And 18 months old is about 1, and 2 years old, it's about 1. Again, so this is now looking at this range of normal within this amount of children who were studied, over 3,000 children who were studied. So actually, it does seem that the wake-ups are pretty normal here. And if your child is waking during the night and they're needing help during the night, it seems that it's actually pretty normal for that to be the case. So if we're looking then back at what these websites are telling us, that it's not actually doesn't seem to be true. It doesn't seem to be true that, yes, some children can sleep for 6 to 8 hours. And I'm sure there are plenty of children as well out there who are sleeping longer than that. But if you look, that's not the case. Just because some can does not mean that all can. So where are they getting this information from? Well, there's a lot of studies that are done on children and sleep. If you just actually have a look at them, there are an awful lot of studies that are done on this. But what's very interesting is a lot of times the information that we are told comes from very, very old studies. But there is one that is still referred to a lot that was done in 1957, and it was done on just over 100 children. I think it was 104 children were studied. These children would have been white, middle class, and probably the majority of them would have been formula fed. Formula was very different in 1957 than it is right now. Formula did take a long time to digest, and formula-fed babies would sleep for longer stretches because that milk would really sit in their stomachs and take a long time to digest. Formula milk now is not like that. It's digested much quicker, and breast milk is perfect for your baby and will digest actually really, really quickly. If you're looking at hunger then that is going to be dictating that there are more wake-ups. But something that was interesting that I read in this 1957 study is it'll be seen that about 70% of the babies had ceased waking in the night by the age of 3 months. Okay, so is this where they're getting this from? That most 70%, which I think we can presume is most, children are no longer waking during the night at 3 months. And another 13% by the age of 6 months. 10% never settled completely at any time in the first year. Of those who had settled, almost half reverted to night waking, and this happened largely irrespective of the age of the first settling. So much as we've seen with the recent studies that wake-ups seem to reduce, and then as the child gets older, they do seem to increase. But if you're looking at this information here, there is nothing about renewed night wake-ups or that it is normal for your child to begin waking again. It's presumed that once your child can, then they must always be able to do it. And just because some can, that it is presumed that all can. And we know that that isn't the case. So, how old is your child, or what weight does your child need to be before they can actually sleep through the night? Will depend completely on your child. It will depend on what you view as sleeping through the night. Somewhere between 6 and 8 hours is apparently sleeping through the night. But I personally view sleeping through the night as when a child goes down to bed at the beginning of the night and then it's time to get up in the morning. That really is sleeping through the night because they're sleeping through the night and not just getting a chunk of sleep, a 6 to 8 hour stretch of sleep. I mean, I need more than that. So of course a child is going to need more than that. So it totally depends on your child and how old they are or how much they weigh when they are ready to do so. Now, there are certainly things we can do to keep wake-ups and feeds to a minimum, but don't beat yourself up or make yourself feel bad because you have a 5 or 6 month old who is still needing to wait, who is still needing to feed during the night and is still waking during the night and needing help. Because honestly, you're in very good company because the majority of children out there are also doing that.